I bet if you are a musician, you have at some point in your life covered a song. Either for your own pleasure, since being able to recreate the tunes of your favorite artist is an amazing experience in itself, to connect better to an audience, or as a classic tool to improve your skill level. Just grinding through the works of past masters is the most obvious way to get better at your craft. If you want to push this to its maximum, it becomes an art form in itself. There has been a strong trend in the history of music to copy the style of idealized artists until you get every nuance so similar that it sounds and feels basically the same to outsiders. Every little move or sound the imitative cover artist makes, maybe on purpose, to represent a foreign image authentically. Classic examples of often copied artists are Michael Jackson, Elvis, but bands like Pink Floyd too. Basically artists who are glorified by culture for their music, strong image and history. The art of imitation works really well as a live performance if you know what you're doing. The downside of this approach to music, however, becomes obvious when listening to their studio soundtracks, if they even exist. A cover song that is so similar to the original that as a casual listener it's hard to distinguish from another is pretty pointless. Without original material or a reasonable change to existing songs, you fail to make a lasting impact in the world. With original material, you fail to be an exact copy of an artist. So, what's the sweet spot where you can keep your own integrity as an artist but also reflect the composition enough so people can connect to it? I think a good cover song first gets the listener's attention by being familiar enough to the source material that it's instantly recognizable, but surprises the listener at the same time at how different it feels to the original. It's about taking a successful composition like a classic evergreen song and either modernize it to reach a broader, more mainstream audience, or to interpret it in a way that it's suitable to your particular niche audience. You add your own flavor to a classic, well-known dish. My favorite example of these kinds of cover versions comes from the band Easy Star All Stars, who managed to cover Pink Floyd's complete Dark Side of the Moon album in a chill reggae dub style, calling it the Dub Side of the Moon. It can also work the other way around, as Johnny Cash has shown us with the huge success of his recording of the song Hurt shortly before his death. The original song was written by Trent Reznor from 9 Inch Nails and is actually a lot darker than Cash's interpretation of it. Let's compare both versions for a moment. 9 Inch Nails chose the chords B flat 5, D sus 2 and E7, which give the composition a really heavy, disharmonic, even depressed vibe to it, if you will. In my opinion, quite authentic regarding Trent Reznor's self-destructive lyrics. They sound like this. Cash, on the other hand, chose to transpose the chord progression to A minor, C major and D major, the classic singer-songwriter chords, giving the rather contemplating feeling of an old man facing his soon-coming death. They sound like this. By transposing the chords, the vocal melody drops by a full step, making it easier for him to sing it with his deep, smoky voice, and easier to sing along to as part of the audience. The more harmonic chords make it much more accessible for the casual listener, and suit Cash's overall style and image far better than if he had stick to the original chord progression. I think this is a deliberate choice, and Cash was very aware of how both subtle and big changes to the music can make a huge difference to the overall vibe he wanted to give off. This gets clear when you compare the lyrics. They are almost identical, except 9 Inch Nails' version has exactly one swear word in it, at the beginning of the second verse, where he sings, "I wear this crown of shit upon my liar's chair," which Cash changed to, "I wear this crown of thorns upon my liar's chair." If you hadn't changed this tiny detail, maybe the cover would have been perceived as unauthentic or with a slight bitterness, because it just doesn't suit the image of Cash being a classy old man. So how can you incorporate this knowledge to your own music? Easier said than done, right? Well, not quite, because the possibilities are infinite if you think about it. Take the same harmonic structure, lyrics and lead melodies, and you will most likely still recognize the song. Your variables to tweak are still rhythm, instrumentation, arrangement, tempo, metric, dynamic, transposition, your equipment in production, and so on. It's all contributing to a larger purpose, the feel of the song. Here's a little personal example of a song which I love to cover. Word Up, originally by Cameo, but my favorite version is by far Korn's approach to covering it, incorporating nu metal elements into the originally really funky hip-hop tune. First, we've got the harmonic structure. Simple, straightforward, and it changes at no point in the entire song, since it's originally a sample that's looped over and over again with some little variations. I've decided to more or less keep the groove, which sounds like this when I attempt it. Now, this is the point where most people would stop adding more stuff to their playing, since there needs to be space for the vocals and it gets frustrating if you want to sing or rap by yourself on a complex mess. But if you can pull it off, there are still a lot of things you can incorporate to your style. Percussion, for example. This is the beat I chose, which should resemble the basic elements of the drums to get a good groove. Now, in my first episode, I brought up the point that the recording of the song is pretty much static, but the perception of the individual listener differs and evolves from person to person. So, if the perception is completely subjective, is it even possible to deliver the same feeling to every person? No, I don't think so. However, you can try to step into the shoes of the listener and get as many viewpoints as possible, until you can make a humble prediction how the vast majority of listeners will react to your recording. There will always be a die-hard fan who dislikes your cover, because it's different from what they are used to, and another person who loves it for the exact same reason. Also, if music is a language and the song is your way to communicate with the listener, then you'd better be aware of the message you want to give to the audience, so you can articulate yourself clearly and avoid misunderstandings. This little analogy was influenced by Friedemann Findeisen's The Addiction Formula. If you're interested in modern songwriting, I'd highly recommend you giving it a shot. Now, let's turn the question around and see what's a good song to cover. Which songs become evergreens? That's pretty interesting because one rarely spends a thought on these questions. It's taken completely for granted. If it's again all about perspective, then let's put on the lens of the songwriter for a moment. There seems to be somewhat of a sweet spot, where other artists listen to your song and say, I'd cover that. The best example may be the legendary Bob Dylan, who has probably been covered more often over the years than he even wrote songs in the first place. Just look at this endless Wikipedia list of his songs interpreted by other musicians. His compositions are so omnipresent in all of pop culture, you often don't even realize that they were made by him. Did you know Jimi Hendrix All Along the Watchtower was originally written by that guy? Yeah, you certainly know if you've watched the Nerdwriter's analysis of the song and its lyrics. If there's a musical explanation for this, I think it would be that Dylan is a far better song and lyric writer than he is a performer of his own material. Don't get me wrong here, he is of course the best at his own style and has obviously succeeded with it, earning him the Literature Nobel Prize in 2016. But interpreting his own songs is just not his biggest strength. His voice is a little quirky, his guitar playing is kept simple to keep the attention on the vocals. The way he uses his harmonica has often been criticized, but man, his sound aged really well. The lyrics are pure poetry, to which you can still relate to a good half-century later, and the feel of the song is so authentic and accessible. You may feel the urge to sing or play along to it. This is subjective, of course, and there are certainly more modern examples to which this description applies too. I think it just has become a lot harder to turn a hit song into an evergreen, especially in today's rapid times where everybody can record and share their music, leading to a flooded market of more music anyone can possibly consume. But this is a topic for another day. Let's recap to wrap this all up. Covering a song is an excellent tool to learn and ultimately master a certain style. Think about how accessible the song is that you want to interpret and compare it to your own style. Is your music more of an easy listen and kept simple, or is it complex and dedicated to a niche audience? Contrast between the original song and the interpretation can work really well, as long as the essence of the composition is still recognizable and the result still feels authentic and natural to you. Subtle changes can both make and break the authenticity of your cover. Reflect deeply on what's your style, which subtle musical characteristics are truly representing your personality. Keep your little quirks and create some room for imperfections, because they give your music authenticity and help you to maintain balance if you are a perfectionist by nature. Also, leaving room for improvement can act as an invitation for other musicians to try to interpret your song in their own fashion, provided your composition is well written. With that said, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment down below, let's have a discussion, and consider subscribing if you want to watch future content. I'm the Arborist, take care.